Hasanabiism.
That this issue, like so many that I expect we're going to see in the next few years, really illustrates the gap between these two blocks in the Trump coalition. I would put tech bros and Wall Streeters in one corner and the MAGA folks in the other corner. And there is going to be this juxtaposition. Now, I think that you can actually have it both ways. I mean, there is a way to crack down on illegal immigration, secure the border, those things a lot of people are for, and also make it easier for high-skilled immigrants to get into this country. Because the fact of the matter is, and I think folks on both sides would say, there are a lot of labor shortages that are actually the biggest problem to growth, productivity, and really the future of the country. And that is going to require more immigration. It's always been America's benefit, value add, particularly compared to Europe or a lot of other places in the country. It's why we have had historically higher growth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious, Congressman. I mean, why, I can never figure out, why is it that when on the right, some of these anti-immigrant folks talk about this, they're not also talking about what it actually is going to take to bring American workers to these jobs, right, whether it's raising their skills.
I think the idea that there is a labor shortage of skilled American workers in these fields is also incorrect, especially when Elon Musk himself did this. Okay. What did he do? He bought Twitter. He was forced into buying Twitter from a Delaware court. Obviously, he didn't want to fucking buy Twitter at the price point that he was buying it at, but he was forced to buy Twitter. And what did he do? He immediately fired every fucking person that works at Twitter that wasn't an H-1B visa holder. Okay. That's what he did. Now, the product sucked as a direct consequence of that. It's barely working with a skeleton crew. But why did he do that? He did that because it's not that H-1B visa workers are significantly better at their fucking jobs than American workers are. He did that because those guys have to keep their jobs in order not to be deported. It's that simple. There isn't a massive shortage of comp sci engineers in the United States of America. As a matter of fact, many of them are in here right now, probably delivering Uber Eats at this very moment because they got fucking laid off from the jobs that they were at. So that in and of itself is another aspect of this issue as well. That's part of the reason why so many people are frustrated with this, where they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? There is no shortage. Yeah, I'm delivering to your house 5 times a day. Hell yeah, baby. Listen, at least you're getting fucking fat tips. If you're delivering to my house, you're getting a lot higher tips than you are delivering to anybody else's house, all right? For the record, the H-1B visa worker, not quite correct regarding Elon on Twitter. Elon lowered their compensation so the people not on visas left. The people who couldn't leave skewed heavily H-1B as a result. It's the same argument. It's the same. H-1B visa workers they can work for lower pay and they will work worse conditions overall because they are reliant on maintaining their jobs to stay in the country. I'm talking about the solution. The solution needs a race component because racism won't disappear in a class struggle. Does that make any sense? But I can leave. I'm just telling you my truth. This is such a boring ass theoretical fucking conversation. Nobody says that once you abolish class dynamics, racism will go away magically. Okay. It will, however, make it far easier to deal with than the current order of business. I was trying to say earlier but the reason there's an influx of H-1B workers from India is because the entire education system is set up to serve capitalism. Software engineering in India is far more cutthroat there than even here. Yeah.
Skill levels, et cetera, because I guess they don't want the government to be involved in that. But don't you think it has to be at this scale?
Why is my king going
I think
against
is one of
theory?
the biggest issues that we have to tackle in this Congress. Yes, we need to secure the border. We need to stop the massive influx of illegal immigration. But the fact is we have a population decline in this country and we have a workforce shortage. We have a shortage of doctors, nurses, engineers, home health aides, ag workers, construction workers, hospitality workers. We need to not only have an
We don't. We have a shortage in one very important component. We have a shortage in wages. Okay? That's it. There's a pay shortage. There's a benefit shortage. And that's it. How's the mouth post-dentist? It's perfectly fine. The numbnesses went away as well. This is another way of trying to do the nobody wants to work anymore attitude. Lolo had a funny tweet about this. I have a slice of, oh, what the hell? My grandma's here. I have a slice of lukewarm Domino's with Iranian beluga caviar. $1,000 per ounce. My Dolce silk robe flaps in the wind as I look out on my sprawling vista of my $35 million estate. I grab my phone. Pronouns suck, I type. I smirk. Briefly, I am alone. I am always alone. There's a messily poured drink on the fireplace. It's one of those automatic starters with the faux logs. This is from 2020. I always hated it, but never got around with the renovation. Another plant in the wind. I look at my reflection in the glass, my visage in the logs. My phone vibrates. Well. Selam. Bye, Nikojum. Well, I suppose. I'm in trouble. A plea from the mother of my child. I feel a tinge. Is it regret? Maybe annoyance. I don't really know anymore. They'll get over it. It's just a joke. It's all a joke, isn't it? I stare at the logs in the fireplace. The fucking logs. As a nurse, we get paid decently, but we're chronically understaffed by design. Nurses have been charged with murder for med errors. Hospitals' work just wasn't worth it. Yeah. Isn't it strange that the gripes that nurses have are virtually universal? Nurses protest the exact same thing in the UK as they do in the United States of America. Isn't that shocking? It's almost always the fact that they are chronically understaffed by design. Okay? There are not enough nurses, which also diminishes the quality of healthcare that people receive. If you are a nurse and you are taking care of 7 patients, you are going to be able to offer them quality care. If you are a nurse and under normal circumstances, you could take care of 5 patients to 7 patients, but now you're taking care of 20 patients, you are not going to be able to, give them the quality care necessary. Literally, wherever there is a hospital around the fucking planet, nurses are facing the same exact problems. Nah, man, more like quality care is 1 to 4. Okay, I fucked up the numbers. I apologize. It's a 5 to 7. It's always the same. These are demands that nurses make that are totally reasonable and quite literally can be a matter of life and death.
Immigration system that works, that has a legal process that people who want to come here and enrich our community, our culture, our economy can do so. But we need an education system that is ensuring that we are building the workforce that we need. It's not just about having a pipeline to college. We need a pipeline to the jobs that need to be filled, which means our K through 12 system needs to be reevaluated. We need vocational.
Yeah, when Lawler says this, by the way, as a Republican, he means we need to privatize education further, driving an even larger wedge between the broadest subsects of American society that don't have the fucking finances to be able to send their children to private school. Just so you understand, these people want to make K through 12 education the exact same way that college works in this country. Okay? And then they fucking complain about, they have the audacity to complain about college education being so fucking costly in this country and how you should just abandon it altogether. So what do you do in that situation? Are you going to abandon K through 12 education altogether as well?
Schools, we need to get kids started at an early age on the path to STEM so that we actually are creating engineers and the workforce of tomorrow, especially from a technological standpoint, from a biotech standpoint. We are the greatest force in the world, and our economy is the most powerful. And we have the most innovative and entrepreneurial people. But the fact is that we do have a shortage in the workforce, and we need to deal with this.
So, okay, what you just said is the thing that got Vivek Ramaswamy in some trouble, okay? So here's his post. He says, the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy, wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture, a culture that celebrates the prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Sounds a little embittered, maybe. Is it American culture that's the problem?
Somebody got stuffed in a locker. I'm not going to say who. Look, I think there's a way to solve this and talk about this that doesn't denigrate all of American culture. I mean, I'm now understanding more and more how he got 100 votes in Iowa or whatever it was he got during the Iowa caucus. The reality is, and Elon, by the way, clarified or further explained his position later and was talking about saying, I want to bring in the top 0.1% of engineering talent from around the world. It's like bringing in a Jokic or a Wembyana to help your whole team if you want to make a comparison to the NBA. So I think we can bring in the absolute top talent from around the world and at the same time not insult the rest of the United States of America and our culture and the way we do things here, and also lift up the American students who have the talent and who have the interest and put them in the right educational opportunities. I think what he did today was to overtalk it. A lot of MAGA people are not happy. A lot of Republicans are not happy. And this is why Donald Trump's in the Oval Office, and he's
saying
a
something
volunteer.
that a lot of people apparently believe, that it's about like the jocks being celebrated, the football stars being celebrated, and not the nerds.
It also challenges, well, actually raises the idea that many immigrant families have when they come to the United States.
This is when you arrive at like the final. This is when you arrive at the cutting edge of the inherent contradictions baked into capitalism. The interests of the working class versus the interests of capital owners. If you consistently try to liberal your way out of this problem, you're gonna fucking be like, oh, it's a cultural difference. That's why Indians have like a better culture surrounding nerdy shit. That's it. You've maxed out at that point, you know? And that cultural attitude is usually just a substitute for race anyway. If you build it, people will come. If you give if you offer better wages to people, they will go to those sectors. They will work in those sectors. I've often talked about the silly attitude demonstrated by many when people are talking about, working in the oil refineries, right? There is no bone in the mind of a fucking Western Pennsylvanian that requires them to work in a fracking job. It's simply that those are the jobs that pay the most. Those are the jobs that have the best benefits. Backbreaking labor, it's heavily subsidized by the American government, and those are the jobs that people actually get the best income in. That is the reason why so many people in that area that work in that field feel as though this is the only opportunity they have. It's money. It all comes back to wages. So if you give better wages to people, if you give people the opportunity to live and survive on singular income, which seems like a dream now, then yeah, they will protect that sector. They will work in that sector. It's that simple.
That if they just get the right grades and they follow this meritocracy path, everything's going to work out and they'll be great. And the reality is that innovation, creativity, emotional intelligence are a huge part of success and innovation in the United States. American innovation is what sets us apart from the Communist Party of China. But this idea that immigrants are...
That's so funny. Yeah. Chinese innovation is really bad. That's what sets us apart, American innovation. Meanwhile, the brain drain is happening in the opposite direction nowadays. One must ask the question, why? It seems to me like that is definitely very frustrating and scary for a lot of American capital owners, American elites. They see that problem. They recognize it.
Often come with also has a baked in racism to it. It's this idea that, well, we as immigrants are the right...
That is pretty funny that this person talked about baked in racism after being like, well, that's the beauty of American innovation, unlike the Chinese Communist Party. Yeah, those disgusting Chinese. Unlike those disgusting Chinese, we don't do racism around these parts. Did you know you're trending on Twitter for being called a misogynist? I thought nothing bad about your take on Queen Blake, but apparently people did. I'm so confused. Sorry for changing the subject. Yeah. Here's what I'm not going to do, okay? Here's what I'm not going to do today. Talk about Radlib accounts. Oh, my Lord. Yeah, I don't care, man. Yeah, I'm a misogynist and also a racist and a class reductionist. All the bad things, okay? What are you, fucking out of your mind? You think I'm gonna entertain Twitter call out posts? Like, get the fuck out of here from like K-pop Twitter stan accounts. Are you out of your goddamn mind?
Kind. We're educated. We're not like those other minorities in America, and that distinction is made very.
Also, I don't even get trended anymore. Nobody gets fucking trending anymore. Trending tabs are no longer what? No, don't come over here. Drink your water and then go back to bed. Don't forget transphobe too, Abby. Yeah, it's true. I am also transphobic as well.
Very clear within minority communities. So, for example, most people would not know that the richest and most educated immigrant population is Nigerian Americans. People would think it's Indian Americans, yet Nigeria was put on the Muslim ban list, right? There is this idea of who the minority is, breeds that kind of challenge that we have with Korean grocers in black neighborhoods.
I think you're getting at something else important here, which is that we need all different kinds of learning and we need all different kinds of cultures. I mean, you made a great point about vocational schools. It's not just about math or the jocks, which is social skills, frankly, which matter. Actually, it's interesting that most CEOs come out of state schools and aren't necessarily the straight A students. You need to change education in this country. You need to value different kinds of skills. I actually think the idea of a meritocracy built just...
But don't dare call me homophobic. No, call me homophobic. I'm a foe. I'm a foe to the LGBTQ community. Everybody knows that.
On, who gets the best SAT scores. And, I'm the child of immigrants, don't get me wrong. I grew up in rural Indiana, though I was also a cheerleader. You can do both, So, I think that you do need a system to be revamped in a way that we haven't done since the post-World War II period in this country.
Okay, I have to get you in on this because I think Rana's talking about something very important, which is there's a movement to sort of say, let's give everybody a points for their grades and their SAT scores and their IQs, and then let's put them in college based on that. And if you did that, you would not actually get to the most successful people, the people who have the best potential. So that seems to honestly undermine this idea of a pure meritocracy, which is what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about here.
Yeah, so there's a bit of a paradox here because the point about IQ and SATs and entrance exams is not necessarily that they measure the inherent worth or the full 3D capacity of a human being. Because as you say, there's all these other important skills in life, and we all know this, right? It's that they are objective. Right. And what we saw, for instance, they're more objective than the alternatives, right? There's no such thing as perfect objectivity on these tests, right? But when you look at what happened at Harvard with affirmative action, they were judging on all these soft skills as well, and their conclusion was that Asian American applicants had worse personalities, right? So the test is never going to do that. The test, it's never going to tell you unfairly that you got this math problem wrong, because if you got it wrong, you got it wrong. And there's something very attractive about that, especially to people from immigrant communities coming to a new country saying, they may not like my vibe, they may not like my culture, but they can't argue with my skill.
Yeah. We have new information this morning.
Oh, they're still Amber Heard fans? Yes. They're very loud, like 100%. And they spend most of their time yelling at me rather than like Johnny Depp supporters, which is funny because I am not a Johnny Depp supporter. I think it's the same principle behind like you yell at people that you perceive on your side because you can get more motion that way. It still ultimately comes from a place of powerlessness in general. Tackling misogyny in society is virtually impossible. It's patriarchal. It's deeply embedded. So you're not gonna get any play yelling at fucking like Asmongold or some shit. So you're gonna yell at who? You're gonna yell at someone who tries to the best of his ability, develop a relatively safe environment, thinking that you can change that environment. So then it makes you feel like you've actually improved something. And in a lot of instances, it also comes from like a misunderstanding.
About President-elect Donald Trump's plans on immigration. The incoming border czar, Tom Homan, says the administration intends to revive practices labeled cruel by critics, including separating families. Scott McFarland is covering the Trump transition and joins us now. Scott, good morning.
Hey, Dana, good morning. Homan told the Washington Post immigration authorities will once again put families with children in detention centers when Donald Trump returns to office. That's a policy that was halted by the Biden administration in 2021, and that they begin building new holding facilities for immigrant families to kickstart that controversial process. Homan also says the feds will try to track down nearly 300,000 immigrant children who he characterizes as missing, and that they'd hire private contractors to help locate the children. Immigration experts tell CBS News those numbers misrepresent government data, but Homan acknowledges in the interview.
Yeah, that just means that means that they are with 300,000 children that have been processed through the American immigration facilities that have been given to an immediate family member, for the record. When they're talking about 300,000 missing children, those children are not missing. They are with immediate family members that went through a background check process. No, people say or trafficking. No, the broad majority of these kids are not trafficked. You're out of your mind. It's like when people, what was it? When people used to say that like during the peak of the QAnon like COVID era, people would say that like what is there like 800,000 kidnappings a year or something? Like 800,000 children are kidnapped in the United States of America, and it was a misunderstanding of the data in and of itself. Where one, they greatly overemphasized the number. It wasn't correct, and I think that the actual number of like children that are kidnapped with like a white van or some shit from a complete random stranger was like in the low tens. Now, of course, that is still horrifying, but it's not 600 or 800,000 children being kidnapped. Most of the kidnappings that they think are kidnappings are actually family court matters, an immediate family member with a custody battle, a child that goes missing for a day and then is found. That's literally what it is. Most of them are found within the 24-hour time frame, but people just like look at that number without any further examination. Yeah. Donald Trump's incoming border czar, Tom Homan, has said that the U.S. government can't find more than 300,000 migrant children and that many have been lured into forced labor and sex trafficking. President-elect Donald Trump and his political allies, including Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, have repeatedly made similar claims. Trump's team's claims are that there are 300,000 children that have been, forced into sex trafficking and slavery. Very QAnon adjacent. Okay. According to immigration experts and attorneys, the claim largely stems from an August report from the DHS's Inspector General's office, which found that 32,000 unaccompanied minors failed to show up for court dates at immigration courts from 2019 to 2023. The report noted that 291,000 migrant children received no court notices at all. It also called on the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement to take immediate action to ensure the safety of unaccompanied migrant children in the U.S. Migrant children who do not appear for court are considered higher risk for trafficking, exploitation, or forced labor, the Inspector General's office reported. But Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, policy director at the American Immigration Council, a migrant advocacy group, told the BBC the figures are indicative of bureaucratic paperwork issue rather than anything nefarious. When you hear the phrase missing, you think that there's a child that someone is trying to find and can't. That's not the case here. The government has not made any effort to find these children. Many of the children, experts say, may well be at the addresses that are on file with the government, but we're simply unable to make their court dates. That doesn't mean something bad happened to them. It means you missed a court hearing. There are valid concerns about exploitation, of course, but the overwhelming majority of these kids are delivered to an immediate family member with a proper background check that is simply not going to court, is simply not attending court. We cannot, however, suggest that all 320,000 of those children are being labor trafficked. Eric Rourke, an immigration researcher with Numbers USA, which calls for tighter border control, said that the children are difficult to track because some combination of apathy, incompetence, and bureaucratic inefficiency. Many, hopefully even most, are safe with caring sponsors, he added, but the Biden administration can't actually say that one way or another and apparently doesn't care enough to find out. Unaccompanied minors detained at the U.S.-Mexico border go through a complicated process that begins with detention and processing by Customs and Border Patrol. Okay? If the child is from a foreign country that is not Mexico or Canada, they're placed into removal proceedings and transferred to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. HHS, through its Office of Refugee Resettlement Office, cares for the children in a network of state licensed providers. The office also seeks to reunify children with family members in the U.S. or with individual and organizational sponsors, who in turn are obligated to ensure they arrive at immigration court dates. Okay? What can the Trump administration do? I don't even want to know what they can do. I mean, they basically want to do everything they can. They basically want to do everything in their power to deport these kids. Okay? And perhaps even better, deport the immediate family members. Fuck it. I'm saying it. America deserves love. Fuck it. I'm saying it. America deserves happiness. Fuck it. I'm saying it. America deserves love. Fuck it. I'm saying it. America deserves happiness. Fucking liar, dude. What a fucking Weasley